Think. Hello and good evening, everybody. We are here for the first episode of the Better Life Blueprint, a chat show which is dedicated to improving our lives one conversation at a time with actionable insights, helpful hints, and everything in between. And I'm very, very happy and privileged to introduce my first guest, Sandhya Pillai, who is a leadership communication coach. And we all know, I don't have to state it again, the importance of better communication in our everyday lives on a personal level, of course, but more so on a professional level. Especially if you're watching this via LinkedIn Live, you are here to either upgrade yourself in terms of rising up on the professional ladder or finding great connections which help you grow. So here we are. Um, Sandhya is has already trained more than 15,000 leaders in stakeholder communication and engagement. And today we are going to speak to her about her own journey and see what all we can learn from Sandhya in such a short span. She's a fantastic person and a great, great mentor. She has been very, very kind to me personally, and she radiates warmth, and you will just see it during the conversation that we are going to have. Um, Please, a virtual clap for Sandhya. And here she is. Ta-da! Drum roll. We will add all those things gradually as I get more hang of this thing. Welcome, Sandhya. Thank you for taking out time to do this, being my first guest. I am as novice as they come. Um, Very, very happy to have you here. How are you?
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone who's joined in live. Thanks, Karan. I think you've also messaged. Thanks, Aananddika. That was such a sweet drum roll that I've heard on LinkedIn Live for the first time. Felt so warm myself. Pleasure to be here talking about everything that we plan to talk today. So, over to you. You are leading the conversation today for me.
Yes, I am, and loving every bit of it. So, let's start with the most recent poll that I'd conducted, in which
Yeah.
almost the majority of people said that the most influential thing they find is a personal story. So, let's hear your story. How did you come to become a leadership communication coach, and what does that entail?
A very interesting question. So, I'll kind of retrace back to where I started, of course, not just where I've reached. A lot of you who are watching me live on LinkedIn, you know that I have more than 15,000 leaders. And I think it's more, it's an old number. I'm not too good with numbers though. But yes, it's more than 15,000 trained, mentored, coached. And it's been a lovely, humbling journey in the last couple of years. So to answer your question, Anandika, I have always been termed talkative by my family, talkative or somebody who would do blah blah blah. I don't think I had a structured conversation then, but I have been a patient listener. That's something I'm very sure of because
Mhm.
most of my school friends would call me agony aunt because they would keep rattling off and whining about their problems. All I would do is just sit down. In my head, those conversations were like some fictional story going on. Believe me, I had no solution to whatever they were ranting about.
Hmm.
But I guess that came naturally to me. Being a patient listener was something that I always did. But having said that, the moment there was a full stop, the next few sentences were mine. I would take control of it and I'd ensure that I stop. So I was someone who was talkative. I had a way of, having conversations.
Hmm.
I think also heard this from parents. I'm really not sure,
Hmm.
but I was someone who would mimic radio shows. I was fond of English very early in my in my life. So my
Hmm.
mom also said that I used to mimic a lot of these English news readers. Maybe I picked up a lot of conversations and communication from there as well. So most of it I think was early. But I did get into number crunching. So, for most of you who do not know about my career, I started with American Express, pretty much call myself a semi banker. because I work with many banks and I still train a lot of bankers.
Hmm.
I started my number analytics and all that with American Express, and then I moved on to start something of my own.
Hmm.
The journey from working with in the corporates and to starting something of my own, there
Hmm.
was something that came very very clearly to me was this is who I am, and if I can say no to people and I have a way of saying no and I'm asserting myself,
Hmm.
that's something I can pass it on to people as well. And that's how I think it started. It did accidentally start. It
Okay.
was not a conscious decision of starting as a communication trainer or a coach. It
Hmm.
was through constant feedback. I keep telling that to people that, I was lucky to have a manager. I was lucky to have family members who are always identified that I had a way with words. I was very good at
Hmm.
weaving stories, which I always was
Hmm.
good at. And I think it was identified in the corporate also very early. I was always put up on the stage and
Hmm.
become the spot and identified that way. I guess that naturally happened, though it was an accident.
Hmm.
And since then, never looked back. I have continued to do that. I love what I do because this is absolutely something I love, having conversations, chit chatting.
Hmm.
But over the years, what
Hmm.
has come also while you're weaving stories is authentic stories stay true to people and they kind of relate it well. Even if you try to fake it,
Hmm.
someday it's going to come back. And thanks to social media today, it does come back to you. It's
And how?
better to be transparent, vulnerable, authentic. You don't have to open the entire pages of the book. It's
Hmm.
up to
Hmm.
you how many pages you want to staple. But rest is should be open to the audience because that makes it more relatable. So
Hmm.
yeah, I guess stories are something which is inspirational, and people always connect to stories better. And I think we have so much of history and culture in our mythology. We've seen how story really weaves such a beautiful story, morale. It also brings in so many thought processes for us, right? So I yeah, I think that's why it is. I also believe in that.
Fantastic. And this is what natural progression looks like when I think somebody's talent, somebody's inherent skill gets recognition, and then you're willing to put in that hard work to take it step by step by step, and there you are with more than 15,000 people trained. I mean, I can't wrap my head around that number. I'm just so in awe of that impact. It's not that that number in itself means
Yeah,
something, of course it does, but the kind of impact that you have generated, and you've guided people to talk about the parts and bits that they want to talk about with authenticity and being very vulnerable. Let's talk about these two very important pillars, which I often in my posts also come back to. That authenticity and relevance is are the two key things in this day and age. Whether or not you like to put yourself out there, you're already there with our pictures on social media, with our posts, our friends and family tagging us. We are already there, out there. uh,
yeah,
and the best way to be out there is to control the narrative. And
yeah,
controlling the narrative, when you're doing it from a very authentic place, I think that's an entire game changer. How
yes.
does leadership, how does communicating authentically impact what you do, how you do as a leader?
Very interesting question. I think there will be multiple layers to it, Anandika, but let me see if I can shorten the answer.
Hmm.
So, authenticity, like I said in my previous question, right, it makes it more relatable.
Hmm.
But I would not say but, and in
Hmm.
the leadership landscape, what happens is you are dealing with a team, right? And today it is not just one team, it is more like you're dealing with global citizens all the time, right? Because
Right.
there is globalization and we are working across the globe with many people. Now, when I am out there with so many countries, so many different kind of cultural background, and there is cross-cultural communication I have to be mindful of,
Hmm.
the least you want to be is to be fake because you're already mindful of so many people, their moods, their nuances, their psychology. You're
Right.
working with so many people. There's so many dynamics that you're looking at. You
Hmm.
don't want to be looking at the third dynamic, which is faking yourself and trying to be the strong authoritative leader or a
Right.
directorial leader.
Hmm.
I think that's not acceptable anymore.
Hmm.
And thanks to social media, though there's always a pros and cons of anything, but
Hmm.
today people know that authoritative leadership does not work. You have to be an involved leader. Servant leadership, though we talk about it a lot, but the followers also won't stay with you if you're not authentic, right? They should also feel it
Absolutely.
relatable. So that's why, for me also, when I get into leadership coaching space, the first I guess the context setting that I and my coaches do in
Hmm.
the session is to let them know that, hey, this session is not just about the functional aspects of communication, which could be language, speech, grammar, but we are going to work the inner outer method, which means we are going to work on your self expression. That context setting is very important for us because it then makes it relevant for them, like you said, relevance, and
Hmm.
it also helps them work with us on the way they narrate their story, right? Even if I want to be authentic, I don't, like I said, you can staple parts of your life story,
Hmm.
but
Hmm.
you still have to ensure that what is the juicy part of it, which will help others grow, right? I'm not talking about the gossips or any other news, but then what is
Right.
it that in my life can I use to inspire people, or how can I bring it on the table and it becomes relevant for them or relatable for them? So we help them not only, I would not use the word control, I use the word change the way you narrate your story.
Hmm.
You don't always have to put in a story as a success story. It
Yeah.
can be a failure story, it can be a before after story, or it can be just that, hey, I don't know how this is relevant, but this is how I feel. It could be an emotional, feel driven story as well, but you change the narrative. You design how you want to curate your story. You design how you want to tell your story. But always remember there's an outcome, right? You want to inspire people, or you want to engage them, or you want to drive results by engaging them.
Hmm.
That outcome should be clear to the leader. So relevance and authenticity. And the most important is looking at an objective of what do I want to achieve. That's important for leadership today because we can't today just talk anything and everything. It is not relevant.
Hmm.
Second, people don't have the time and bandwidth to listen to all the stories. We
Hmm.
need to curate it in a way which is relatable, relevant, and contextual.
Very, very well said, Sandhya. And I also, um, as a personal branding evangelist, I really, really like to talk about this fact that yes, you don't. It doesn't have to be all the time about success stories, about
Yeah,
winning the wars. You have to choose and present the humane part of it, and more so since COVID, we are all so disconnected. We're
correct.
also, I don't know how to put it, but yeah, maybe we've all become so compartmentalized in our silos that until and unless we are able to connect emotionally with somebody through their stories, of course, most of us are sitting behind a laptop half of the day. If we are not able to emotionally find that connection, it's not a long lasting association. It's temporary at the best.
Yeah,
It probably serves a purpose for a little while.
yeah,
What would you say would be a good, a good mark, from where to identify that this is worth sharing on a public platform, and this is something which, maybe I don't want to put it out there for people's consumption. And I know you've said no when you said juicy gossips and everything is off the table, but for a leader to bring something to the table which can inspire, you know maybe a lot of youngsters who are amongst their followers, or
yeah.
act as a glue for their own team members. How does a leader identify that this is something which will, which will be
Yeah.
meaty and which will be uh, good food for consumption, not junk food?
Where, yeah, I guess that's a intriguing one, right? How do you differentiate between a junk conversation and a healthy conversation? No, I guess we do that, right? And we do that in the coaching, landscape. So let me, maybe, I can describe it in a different way. So
Mm-hmm.
when I look at the narration or the self introduction, when we work with that, the
Mm-hmm.
simple conversation. In fact, it's a psychological hack for most people to understand that it's the audience, which is important here when we talk about public speaking or any kind of conversations or, speeches that we're giving. It's not me. So move
Right.
away from the ego state of one, hey, hi, I'm the CEO, I'm the founder. You're nobody. You're just a person standing right there on the stage. You're lucky to
Mm,
be there and addressing 200, 500 people.
mm,
But they are the followers who are going to listen to you and get every bit of words, emotions, and feelings from you,
true.
and don't know what space they are coming from.
Yeah.
So the first thing that we need to be very careful of is who is my audience, right? Is it students? That I
Mm,
need to be very careful of my opinions and the thought process and my actions that I bring on the table. And I'm saying that because I had one incident in the morning, and I don't want to name the college, but we've been hearing many such instances where we see faculties and professors behaving in a manner which is not in line with what we are preaching to the students. And today's students, they do voice it, right?
they
And
this generation is very discerning. They
yeah,
really.
and they are very vocal about the fact
Yes.
that this happened, right? And it was disheartening for me to be on the other side of the education sitting and saying, hey, I give you campus to corporate and I help you with corporate placements. But here is a story where, on two different faculties and professors at that level of 35 years of academic experience, you
Mm,
talk like that to a student. It takes away a huge chunk of trust, right? So
mm,
when you're addressing the aspiring young leaders of the country, uh,
mm,
please, and this is a request to all the leaders, teachers, educators, facilitators out there, please do not pass on any opinion or religious context or politics or anything for that matter,
mm,
because it does sway, and it does sway in a direction which it is not meant to sometimes. Just let them see the pros and cons of it. They are smart enough to figure out what is good for them, right? We are
yeah.
no way meant to inspire them to a particular direction. We don't have to do that. They are good and knowledgeable enough. They have enough resources to figure out what is what, and they can kind of differentiate that. So the audience matters the most. Now, if I'm addressing a mid-level or maybe first
Mm,
time managers to mid-level,
mm,
I need to know what they're looking at. Most people are looking at how do I be seen? How
mm,
can I grow to that level of the next, senior leadership? How will I be seen by other people? Will I stand out in the crowd of, the sea of kind of people in the organization? These are kind of things that they are worried about.
mm,
Bring your conversations in a manner that, hey, I have been there and
yeah.
I've through these challenges, and I've gone through these challenges where sometimes I was sidelined, I was isolated, but this is how I, came up the curve. That's for people. Now
Mm,
senior to CEOs, because they've got really accustomed and they're not novice anymore, so they're kind of used to the corporate environment. Then your conversation with them has to
mm,
be different, and it has to be aspirational, transformational. It has to be around specifically communication. Then, not that I'm taking away the fact that educators, teachers, they're not instrumental in shaping the way they talk, but
mm,
when it comes to senior levels and CEOs, they are people who normally they're put on the pedestal and people look up to them. So your communication at that level becomes
mm,
very important. So if my objective and if I know my audience well, I can accordingly tweak the conversation that I need to have
mm,
and not need to share all the junk that I had in my life. Respect it, right? So when you're in the premises of a college institution, do talk about the funny things that you did in college. Not
mm,
that we don't want to talk about whatever we did, right? We do all kind of things while we are college, but we also talk about, hey guys, we had less resources, but this is how where we reached, and you have more resources. How do you leverage it? I'm just giving an example.
mm,
Same for the first time managers and mid-level managers. Uh, Talk about what would inspire them to do better, not have a conversation which makes them, like you said, compartmentalize or label certain people. Instead, help
mm,
them see that in spite of these challenges, there are three other things I can do. I have a plan A, plan B, plan C that I can implement. Show them that path, right?
mm,
And
mm,
last, of course, they already know their path. The senior leaders and CEOs and the C suites, they would know their path. We
mm,
don't need to guide them there. All that you have to tell them is how do you now control the narrative. There is so much that we've spoken about.
Hmm.
Now, at this level, at a CEO level, how do you control the narrative in a way where every part of your organization feels touched by the way you talk,
Hmm.
from the bellboy to the office boy
Hmm.
till the last person in the organization? That's how the communication should be at a CEO level.
Hmm. 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 This bit takes me back to my I think it would have been the very initial lecture at during my master's day uh, in mass communication at Punjab University. And this one line has always stayed with me, and I think I owe a lot of uh, my success as a writer, as a communicator, to this particular line which one of my professors said. And that
Hmm.
was that you have to tailor your message according to the receiver. The sender is nobody. And I
Yeah,
think Ogilvy also put it in the fantastic, most profitable way: the customer is the king.
yeah,
So I completely hear you on this, and I completely agree with you. It matters a lot कि वो किसके consumption के लिए है, and
correct.
that is the starting point from where you stitch the whole narrative. You design the whole narrative.
Yeah.
Sandhya, a lot of people who might be viewing this, people who are within my network, are youngsters, professionals, students who are stepping into the world, maybe on their first jobs, maybe on their second jobs, and something like this. What uh, would you suggest for them to do in this year, probably, to be able to climb the ladder of success? And there have been numerous reports by Forbes and Times and everybody, where communication skills have been categorized as one of the most important skills, and now they're not even being called the soft skills. They're
Yeah.
very important core skills, communication. What would be your suggestion for them to, really grow in their professional careers?
My answer is going to shock you, Anandita. So I'm going to say, Anandika, sorry. Uh, I'm going to say the reverse, right?
Hmm.
Let them be the way they are. In fact, I think it's time that millennials, or the, who we call it as, we are the baby boomers, I guess. We should learn from them.
Hmm.
It's time for reverse mentoring, guys. Whoever is listening to this recording, we learned it all the wrong way. Let's unlearn everything that we had about communication. We actually got it all wrong. That's what I'm going to say. 5 years since I started this journey, and
Hmm.
each time I hear the leaders, the CEOs, and the directors, and all of them talk to me. In
Hmm.
fact, we laugh off saying we got it all wrong. Learn it from the Gen Z, and maybe the Alpha, whatever that is called, the next generation. They have got it right. They know how to vocalize it. They know how to verbalize it. Please get it from them, and in lesser words than we can. We have paragraphs in so many emotions stitched into a sentence. They don't. For them, no is a no. It is a sentence in itself, and it's that clear and articulate, right?
Hmm.
And it's so I think we need to learn from the younger generation rather than the other way around.
Hmm.
I totally believe in that. But the
Hmm.
only thing I believe for everyone today in 2025 or onwards is please accept AI as a medium. We
Hmm.
can't be resistant to it. I know a lot of people constantly are scouting and criticizing, saying, hey, it's an AI content. I know it's an AI content. You can do that for a year. You can do that for 2 years. But, sweetheart, 5 years later, you are going to do the
Going to,
same. So
it's
as
a
well,
limited bone to pick as a writer.
yeah,
I think we are being targeted, especially with generative AI.
yeah,
And I have in a lot of conversations with young people, I've told them that AI, we need to educate the client as well, as far as AI usage is
yeah,
concerned.
yeah.
It is our responsibility now. It's become part of that package. You don't just write for them. You have to tell them that AI
Yeah.
has been trained on work of people like us. So it's not that we are getting lazy and we're getting AI to do our work. AI has been trained on our work. So what it is producing is actually based on our work, and we just need to take it further. And
Absolutely. So if you want AI to come up with narratives, or if you want AI to come up with the story, start writing one for yourself, because most of it is picked up from the open source or open internet source. So
yeah.
don't run away from it is what I want to say, because I keep hearing a lot from people.
Hmm,
Thanks to a lot of leaders from the technology field that I've coached, they're very open to accepting it. In fact, I've learned a few nuances from them.
hmm,
So let's accept it, but
yeah.
just tweak it around. Use AI as you want it.
Hmm,
For example, you want a particular tonality in the way it writes for you. So
hmm,
first write the script that you want in your own language, and then kind of get it tweaked. That's
hmm,
good. The second most important part, like I started with saying, is people who have been almost like in this field for 15 to 20 years. Stop, pause, reflect, and see if your communication is really healthy. When I say healthy,
hmm,
is it really getting you the results that you want?
hmm,
When I say healthy, what I mean is it also impacting emotionally the other person? If it is hurting and
hmm,
condescending, you need to look at that.
hmm,
And third most important is it getting you results? If these three is not happening for you, they're not happening, you need to sit down, reflect, and maybe learn from the Gen Z how it needs to be communicated, how it needs to be structured. So please stay open to reverse mentoring. I know it's a very technical term and there's a lot of research that's going on around it, but it's important for us to be open to embrace what is new. And if I'm not able to do that, seek help, but do not run away from what is coming as new and embrace that. So for any leader out there, just try and test the mediums, learn from
hmm,
the new generation if, yeah, and they're willing to help. Learn to articulate the way they do. Most important, please learn assertive techniques from them. They are the best that I've seen in the campus, or even in the leadership landscape. They're so clear about what they want. Now for these
hmm,
Gen Z, the only thing I want to say is there is a thin line between respect and being
hmm.
assertive.
Yes.
Just be careful of that, guys. I know you, all those children out there, you're doing beautifully well with communication. I wish I could get trained by you, but the only thin line is respect versus,
Result.
assertion.
Hmm,
That's the only thing I would want the Gen Z to be mindful of.
hmm. Okay. And I think that that really is valuable. You should know where assertiveness turns into being rude, and how
Yeah.
and where to be a little mindful of age, of even the designation. Mm, so that I think is a valuable addition to this. What are your plans for 2025 as a communication coach? What are you looking forward to, Sandhya?
A lot more people to be aware of what coaching is. India as a country, it's still not there, though we're talking a lot of numbers and you can see a lot of analytics around it.
Yeah.
But something that we keep hearing about is India has reached a space where a lot of coaching is not affordable.
Oh,
And of course, I'm sure there is a lot of myths around it, and there could be numbers and analytics. But I think we should look at affordable coaching, because there are times that the first time managers can't pay maybe the kind of coaching fees that we are charging. So that has to change. If we are
right.
looking at working with leaders and we are genuinely looking at better positive work culture, then the way they communicate with the team has to change. And
Hmm,
if we want that mass change to happen, we have to look at coaching which can work in the Indian market as well. We can't be at that space where we charge that much, and
hmm,
then the major chunk of the population who really needs this at the mid level to senior level, they
hmm.
can't even afford coaching. That's
Right.
one part of it that I'm kind of worried about. I'm not really sure if we have a solution.
Okay.
But yes, I think that's something that we may have to look at,
Hmm,
because if we want India to have coaches on board in the organizations like we have in Europe and US and many other countries,
hmm.
we will to change something about that.
Okay.
So yes, I do look at still more awareness that needs to be built, and a lot more myths to be busted about communication coaching, which I think time and again I've been talking about it. It is not just training, it is not just your language, it's not just body language or first
Mm,
impression, it's not just public speaking. It goes much beyond, it's deep rooted. It is something that comes from either conditioning, exposure to certain things, or any kind of family, issues or traumas. You would have picked up a narrative which is unhealthy.
mm,
If you don't correct it, even if you get all the frameworks, everything, at a
mm,
point when
mm,
there is a trigger in the organization, you will react in a manner which is
mm,
not conducive to the other person. You will react in an unhealthy manner, which is not assertion, it would be aggression then. So I want people to know that coaching is not limited to words, grammar, accent,
mm,
but it's much more deeper. We need to start looking at coaching in a very different format and be open to that as well, right? So coming back to be open to the fact that you will have to be at one stage be vulnerable to what you've gone through,
mm,
authentic to your experiences and say, hey, I've gone through it and I think I did do some wrongs there, but I'm ready to and I'm willing to correct those
yes,
whatever I did wrong.
yes.
And you have to be open to embrace whatever failures. So it's not about sharing your failure story. It's also the readiness and preparedness to say, hey, I did that mistake and I don't
Mm,
think you should do that. Right. So
mm,
that's something I would want to definitely encourage and bring that awareness again and again.
mm. Very interesting. Coaching as a concept has always sounded very elitist. So I think your worry is very much justified, and I hope it doesn't come to it. And I hope coaching in 2025, especially communication coaching, becomes accessible. Maybe group classes are the way to be. Group coaching, group sessions are the way forward, and a lot of people would definitely benefit from this kind of approach, a holistic approach, which when asks you to look at your own triggers, look asks you to examine your own self first, um, is equivalent to working on healing your own self.
Yeah.
And I think it is extremely important to do that, no matter what sort of setup you are working in. You cannot take the black cloud over your head because of something somebody said, and make life miserable for someone. That, as a human being, I think you owe it to
Yeah.
yourself, and owe it to all your colleagues, all people who are working around you, all your sisters,
Absolutely.
everybody.
Absolutely.
Well, I think that's a wrap for us, Sandhya. Thank you so much for this conversation. My last question before we leave, because the whole idea of the Better Life Blueprint is to give people something solid, something of a takeaway which they can start implementing, or they can figure out for themselves, uh, to 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 be able to amp up their life. uh, what would you say are probably three prerequisites, if somebody is thinking of improving their communication? What would be those three prerequisites with which they can start working in that direction to take themselves further on that path to become a better communicator?
Yeah, good. You spoke about communication because if you would have asked a blueprint for life, I would have said, don't follow mine.
No, by the looks of it, I'm sure a lot of people are going to agree with me. It doesn't look that bad. You have a skill, you get recognized for that skill, and then you make it the love of your life. What else? There are no Monday blues.
No, just kidding. So the better blueprint life for me, and I'll talk about communication as well. So why I said that is there is a lot of leap of faith, and when I say lot of, there is definitely a lot of leap of faith that I had taken, and as a businesswoman or a solopreneur. There have been steps which is out of the box that I've taken. Today, when I look back, I don't think I regret. But when I took it, I had no idea what I'm going to do about it. So the blueprint for life for me has mostly been plan A, plan B, plan C.
Hmm.
Though I did take a lot of leap of faith, for the outside story and the cover story, it may look like, oh, she's taken a lot of deeper play, but
Hmm.
there has been a lot of resilience and a lot of mind work that has happened. I think Aananddika has dropped off. Aananddika, are you there? Can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah, I'm here.
You can hear me, right?
Yes.
So, yeah, to be a better communicator, I think the first step is to start having conversations. And I know a lot of people, I don't like to use the word the introvert and extrovert, but
Hmm.
there are certain people who are not comfortable in a larger audience. For them, at least start having conversations with one or two people, but start having conversations. We need to start moving to video conversations. And this is for
Yes.
everyone. It's not about hybrid. It is not about COVID. It's not about your privacy. It's my life, my way. It is about beautiful human connections that since ages we've learned, right? वो चौपाल पे या चरपाई पे बैठ के जो गप्पे मारते थे, it had a reason.
Yes.
And if we start doing that, believe me, the mental health epidemic that we're expecting, I guess we can reduce it. And it's genuinely a sincere request to everyone, because in my trainings I see people with videos off and it is disheartening to see that.
Hmm. Hmm.
But and I'm sure most trainers and facilitators will agree with that. But I'm very happy to have leaders across the board now. In the last couple of months, they've come up to me and said, Sandhya, I want to meet you offline. uh, I want to see you. I want to sit across the table and share everything about me. I don't want to do it online. And I'm so happy to have such leaders, right? So the first step is everyone, don't label yourself as an introvert or an extrovert. Take away those labels. Just focus. If you are extrovert, I know you're comfortable with people. You kind of gather that energy from people. So start having those conversations face to face. And if you're introvert, pick up one person, two people, but have conversations. Please
Hmm.
get in back into human connections that will help us manage the mental health epidemic
Hmm.
better.
Hmm.
Second is that if you really want to be a better communicator, understand that asking questions is a better way of eliciting responses from the other person. It also builds an interest and curiosity in the other person to answer, because you're genuinely showing interest in their life.
Hmm.
So instead of bragging, मैंने वो किया ये किया और मुझे इतने awards मिले, stop, pause, ask questions to the other person. Maybe their life is more interesting than yours. So, like I said, don't look at my blueprint. Be interested in the blueprint of others' life. There's a lot of juicy content out there, right? Not for your gossip, but for you to learn and get
Good.
inspired by. So, ask questions
Agree.
as much as possible. Ask questions. The third most important is that when you are communicating, try to be authentic, be very, very clear about what you're sharing. And if at all, for example, you did go and you get triggered and you got aggressive, it's okay. It happens.
Hmm.
Come back, reflect on what was that trigger.
Hmm.
Figure out what irked you about that other person's statement
Hmm.
and reflect on how can I do better. So, I have some leaders that I spoke this morning, and I was so happy and elated to know that they had done that reflection last year.
Hmm.
This is one of the exercises that we do in our coaching sessions. We make them journal every week. But there were three leaders I spoke to this morning, and I was so happy to see that they had done the reflection in 2024 and
Hmm.
they wanted to be onboarded in 2025 because they've already done the reflection of their triggers. So I would want everyone to go back. It's okay if you had a trigger, it's okay if you had an emotional breakdown,
Hmm.
but sit down and reflect on what made you speak like that, or what made you get triggered by that statement, what hurt
Hmm.
you the most. It will help you become a better communicator, express better, actually. So I think these are my three things. So people who are hearing me would be looking at frameworks. I don't have any. I'm genuinely looking at speaking from the heart. And I'm a person, I completely believe if you talk from here to here, it travels faster and it's more
Makes
effective.
more sense, impacts better. I agree, and that is the truth between of our relationship as well, and how we have connected. Just to sum it up for everybody here, this is Sandhya, a leadership communication coach, and you've just heard from her that going ahead, um, coaching is going to pave way not only for you to become a better communicator but become a better human being. Talk, have conversation, ask questions, and be an active listener. Don't talk down to people, wherever on the corporate ladder you might be sitting or standing. Don't talk down to people. Listen to them actively, ask them questions, relevant questions, answer with authenticity when you are asked something, and just be a good human being at the end of the day. And thank you so much, Sandhya. With that, we
Thank
come
you.
to the end of this first episode. I could not have asked for a better guest, for a more
Thank
deeper
you.
conversation on a topic which is very close to my own heart, being in the same line of work. Um, Thank you once again. Thank you for taking out the time. Thank you for sharing your insights and your own story.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Aananddika. Thanks everyone who have heard me now or you're listening to the recorded version. Stay blessed and enjoy. Thank you, Aananddika. Thank you so much for this.
You're most welcome. Thank you to everyone who has participated, who has taken out time to be here, to show support, to listen to us, and to gain from this conversation. I would really love to hear back from you. What did you like about this conversation? If you have any questions for Sandhya, maybe you can drop them in the comments, and if Sandhya can find the time to answer them, I'm sure she will be more than happy. I am speaking on her behalf. She'll be more than happy to take those questions. But yeah, knowing Sandhya, I'm sure she's not going to mind. She's all about giving, caring, and sharing.
Thank
So
you.
please bring it on. If you have any such questions, any more topics that you would like to have you would like me to have a conversation around with one of country's finest coaches like Sandhya, please let me know. And thank you. God bless. I would like to see more of you. Bye bye.
Bye bye.